Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Rendr Goes Behind the Booth podcast. This is a podcast where myself and Brad will get to know all the people that make it happen in the industry. People such as artists, DJs, label owners, booking agents, promoters, videographers, photographers, and all those people that are in between. On the first episode, I sat down with Nate S.U and we discussed his journey into the music industry, his production techniques and processes, and what he's looking for going forward with everything that's going on. The launch of his new label, When Dogs Fly, a really good label that has a really good cause, a very personal cause to him. So you can check that out. And also you can check out his latest release with us on vinyl with a Fabe remix. This is sold out on dj.de and a few other stores, but there is still some copies available on Phonica, and there is a repress coming soon, so stay tuned for that. But for now, make sure you turn up and enjoy my conversation with Nate S.U.
It's just a good chat.
It's
nice to see you in person, mate.
Yeah, I know, mate. All we know of each other is Facebook Messenger or Instagram messages.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no face to face. That's the thing that sucks about all this is we can't meet up. Like ADE would be a good excuse to meet up and all that. But I mean, we've been talking for a while now, haven't we?
Yeah, mate. For probably a year and a half, maybe more.
Easily.
I don't know.
Well, if you think,
Probably might have been catfishing me.
I was thinking that because I think the first time we spoke was for the remix, obviously, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For Hoods. Yeah. And then I was just thinking then, because I was just listening to the vinyl EP, and that was, I remember going through the demos in the first lockdown over here, so that would have been in March, April time.
Yeah.
So that's been locked since then, and then I think we got Fabe involved. Must have been May. So I think everything got done in that lockdown, to be fair. So it's probably every cloud has a silver lining.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the remix would have been even another 6 months before that, and then you asked me about the record, and then that was in 2019.
Yeah,
and then in the New Year's when we started sending over tracks, and it's a long process, mate.
It's very organic though. I like it, but it feels like another lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But now it's got. But now you look back and you realise how quick it went.
Yeah, that's it. But I think a lot of EPs now, they're sorted months in advance, because for you as an artist, you're putting out, especially with all this free time, you're putting out a lot of music, and for us, personally as a label, we like to get things sorted a lot in advance rather than rushing around, so everything's planned out. So I think it's a good way to do it. It makes it very organic, and then it makes it a lot smoother up until release for like building the promotional runs and stuff like that. You're not rushing around. Everything's perfect, and then you can have a really good run to maximize the outreach. So I think we nailed that one, mate, I have to say.
Yeah, for sure, mate. Yeah, no, I was actually I think you guys were probably one of the first labels that I dealt with that I actually got like the masters were in, and then it was still another like few months until release, and I was like, I like it, because as you said, there's no pressure. If anything goes wrong in that interim period, then you're not under any pressure to try and get it out.
That's it, mate.
For sure. I think a lot of labels could learn something, including myself and my own label. So, we often feel like we're ahead of time, and then just out of nowhere you realize, oh shit, we've only got 6 weeks until our planned release date. And
that's it, mate.
Yeah, man, no, it's been good. Very fun lead up dealing with you boys.
Yeah, and do you know what, mate, considering the one thing we would have wanted, I suppose, was, I know we had Fabe play it and on his sets, and Archie played it, but it'd be really good to see it in the clubs. But it's one of them. There's nothing we can do. But I think, considering, because that's one thing that on the build up, you're almost trying to like get bits together, because it's not good to have no promotional content. But we were trying to find what we could, and then suddenly in the space of a week, there's about 4 videos that came out, and we were like, boom, there you go. Easy as that. Yeah,
for sure. There was a Alessio video. Luckily, they were still playing some parties in Italy. I don't know how good that did, I don't know.
The last ever party, it seemed.
Yeah. Nah, mate, yeah, even though that's why I was still so surprised about how successful the record was. Like,
Yeah,
everyone's just buying records, man. It doesn't
everyone
matter.
loves it.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter. Like if you hear a good record, like it's not gonna be around when the parties come back. It's gonna sell out, you know. So everyone's still jumping on it anyway. So
Yeah,
it's I don't know. A lot of labels are like, oh, it's not the right time to release vinyl, but I don't know. To a certain extent, I think everything that is being released is being snapped up so quickly. You
yeah, I agree. I think it's one of them where I heard it on Josh Baker's podcast with, I think it might be Casey Spillman, but he was talking about the shelf life of records, and
Yeah.
it really spoke to me, that because digital wise, the shelf life is very short at the minute, because
Oh yeah, for sure.
what gives it the longevity is seeing it out in the clubs and
Mm.
hearing it out in the clubs, whereas it's only really getting played at home or in mixes or stuff like that. So the shelf life is very reduced. But with vinyl, you've actually got that physical copy in your hand, so there's endless longevity in it, because you're always going to have that record. So people are transferring to having the actual record in the hand rather than having the record and then going out and hearing it in a club and then wanting to buy it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree, man. Like, even now, like, if someone releases a really big or really good digital EP or even a track, and I really want to get it, I'll buy it. And then if I don't put it in a mix, it'll sit there. And then how many other tracks are gonna sit on top of that and push it down? Yeah, like, and how long until gigs come back, and then I'm gonna have to go back through hundreds of tracks to try and find it. And most of the time, then it's like being played in 100 other mixes or whatever. Like, as you said, man. Like, I mean, for me, that was my first vinyl release with you boys. And it's just like the actual feeling of holding that record.
Yeah.
It's just like, you can't beat it, man. Like,
no.
You know, and I'm not gonna go and just be exclusive vinyl releaser now, you know, but it's definitely for me something that you know, vinyl will be my priority sort of thing, because it's just like, and years down the track, you know, like, you're gonna have those records to look back and as a marker of like times in your life sort of thing, you know.
It's a timestamp, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, man, exactly. And even now, like 1 year, 18 months, whatever on, like, the music coming out on this EP now and what I'm writing right now, it's so different, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just goes to show, like, even in a year, how much things change, you know?
Exactly. It can be one of them where it's a timestamp of where you were at that point of your life or that point of writing music, and then how, like you said, now, because of where you are, because you've had a situational change, how you can see how that has influenced your music at that time. So you can look back on Man with a Tiny Mind EP and think, oh, I can hear those influences coming out of where I was. Whereas now, because you moved, on the music you're making now, you might hear the influences of being around you in that music. So I think it's really cool. It's a really good way of logging your evolution of music.
For sure. Yeah, I can still remember when I first wrote the tracks, like, so vividly, because I just had this in my bedroom, and it was just like this little cave. It was a little dungeon that it was where I was writing all my music, and that was where I was the first lockdown, and I was just in there for 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day, and I'd only come out for food and water. Oh mate, maybe I'd go down to the beach for a swim if I felt like treating myself. But
curtains closed.
Yeah. So I was at that place for 4 years, you know, and the studio was always the same, like, down there. And it's like really, really good memory for me. And obviously I'm glad that I have this record. You know, I've got a lot of digital releases that came out of that little dungeon setup, but glad I got at least one record out of there, because obviously I'm in Barcelona now, and the other boys who I lived with, they're out of that house. So it was 4 years of the fun period of parties and all that. But yeah,
made the most of it. So I was like, well,
yeah, exactly.
If we go back to that, then one thing that listening around to other podcasts that I really think works is going back to the start and starting it off chronologically. So if we go through that, how did it all start out for you? I'm just going to turn this heater off, mate, because it's winding me up. I'm conscious that you can hear it in the background, just a little hum. So yeah, how did it all start out for you? How did it?
Mate, I had a very different introduction to it, I think. I was like, mate, I was big on sports. I used to play rugby league
Is that
You know,
AFL or?
no, rugby league. So you got that up in the north in the
Yeah,
UK,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Rugby league, yeah.
yeah.
So that was like my life, man. When I was younger, for probably 15 years, I played. Had a lot of injuries, and then up until I was about probably 23, I had to call it. There was just too many injuries, sort of thing. And meanwhile, all my mates had been living the party life, you know, going out. And for me, it was like, oh, I got footy tomorrow. I'm not going out.
Early night.
You know, I like to get on the beers and stuff, you know, after footy, but I never really go clubbing. I did have a phase there when I was like 17, 18, going out in King's Cross. RIP to King's Cross, mate. It was golden era. But then after that, I sort of did a few trips to Europe. I was going out to clubs in King's Cross every week, and that's where I met like pretty much all my best mates now. Like I had a lot of best mates from when I was younger, and I'm still close with them. But the guys that I run the Conspiracy with, the record label, and do all the parties with, we all kind of met in this clubbing scene in King's Cross. Me and my cousin Andy and a few other mates, we'd just go there every Saturday. It was like it was a club called World Bar, and every Saturday, no matter what it was on, we would end up there. You know, if it was Dad's 40th, a wedding, like it doesn't matter. We'd always bail.
That was your stomping ground.
Yeah, that's it, man. Like every weekend for a long, long time, you know. And then back to the boys' house in like North Sydney. Anyway, so we're just around this music. Nothing even comparative to what I make or listen to now, but just that clubbing scene. And then a few mates were DJing. Elijah, who's part of Conspiracy, he was always there, and we were watching him play. Anyway, we went to Europe for a trip, and we were in we'd started DJing a little bit. And actually, no, the first time we went to Europe, we hadn't started DJing. Me and Andy, that is my cousin. And we went there and we went to all these festivals, and we're like, fuck, mate, when we get back, we're going to get some fucking decks and we're going to get into it, you know? So we got back and we bought this little controller. It was like a little XDJR1 or something like.
Yeah, everybody starts on a controller, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. And at that time, we were like writing down cue points when to bring in the track and stuff, because we had no fucking idea. And
were you syncing it then?
Yeah, what was that?
Were you syncing it? Were you syncing the tracks, or were you beat matching?
No, we were beat matching,
Good
but
lads.
like we were just writing down the times, like when to bring them in, so that we knew, like, because there was no like going by the feel, and we still like, we had no fucking idea. You know? Like I know, like I was pretty musical. Like I played guitar like from when I was like 13, but when it came to that sort of thing, we just didn't know. We were just teaching ourselves. And then
what sort of stuff were you mixing?
Oh fuck, mate. Like some like EDM sort of stuff, and then even a little bit of like rap and hip hop. Like it was just mate, whatever tracks that we liked at the time, you know. And then I know Andy was just like first one out of us to start getting into a bit more minimal stuff, but even then it was like what you would we wouldn't really call it minimal now. And I guess a month passed, I don't know how long, and then I decided to throw a party on a boat for like Christmas. It was just all the boys, and we took the decks on, and me and Andy DJ'd the whole time. We did like a set individually and then a set together, and it was just all different types of music, and it was good, you know. It was something for everyone. And then I threw another boat party and invited more people this time. I think it was about 100, and that was the first sort of gig, like proper gig. And then a mate of ours, Elliot, who was running parties in another King's Cross club called Soho. I think it was called Soho at the time. Soho. He's like, oh, you boys actually played all right. I'll put you on at the club upstairs. So we got like an opening set, and then it just sort of evolved from there. We're definitely being out every week and making those connections helped us, and then from there you start putting out mixes, and I guess then it's the natural evolution from there. I sort of knew early on that I was like, okay, have a look around. There's not many DJs these days who are just DJs making it a successful living with just that. It's like back in the old school for sure, but these days, not much. You have to be like quite exceptional at what you do on
There's only
record.
very few out there really that really do that. Exactly. The others are producers, and they build a brand around that, don't they?
exactly, mate, exactly. And I knew that I wanted to do that, so I got. I think the first thing I did was Logic on my Mac.
Yeah.
Downloaded that, and once again just bumbled around with it on and off for fucking a year. And then I was like, one day I just like, it just clicked for me, and I just like, I've got to be more consistent here.
Yeah.
So then I was for a good maybe year or something, and I had some tracks made and stuff that were pretty average.
Yeah.
Actually very average. But I was putting whole tracks together, you know, structure wise. Like I didn't know a thing about fucking EQ or compression or anything like that yet. Because I didn't even watch tutorials or anything really, mate. I was just fucking legit, like just, you know, I don't know. I was just playing around with clips and stuff.
Is that the way you found that you learn, that you just get stuck into it and experiment with stuff and see what you picked up and see, right, if I change the threshold on a compressor, that's how I know that works. And instead of watching videos, because for me, that's the way I learn, is I watch videos to get ideas, but then I very much just delve into the software and play about with stuff to understand how stuff works. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, mate, for sure. These days, I mean, like at that point though, I hadn't even delved into that because I hadn't even stupidly hadn't even looked online. Like I was just like absolute. But yeah, even like after a year or so, like I still wasn't where some people are after a month now these days, you know.
Yeah.
But I was still on Logic, and then a few mates who were like pretty well known producers and DJs in Sydney were like, man, I'll help you out, but we use Ableton, and that was a response I was getting from everywhere, you know. So I was like, fuck, all right, I'll bite the bullet. I'm gonna start again. And when I downloaded Ableton, mate, I was pretty defeated because it was like starting again. It was like I'd never known anything. It was like I'd just never even seen any DAW before.
Ableton's quite intimidating, I think, compared to Logic, because I started out on Logic, and it just looks nicer, I think. And when you get onto Ableton, because it's all kind of grayed out and there's no real differentiation at first, you think, where do I start? What do I press? But it's definitely more user friendly as you get to learn it, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Like immediately, like I saw the results like of me changing over. Like the first track I wrote was by far the best, and I still go back and listen to those tracks now because musically, like, they still draw me in, and like I really like them. And if the mixing wasn't so fucking shit, I'd probably like consider maybe releasing them under another project name or something like that. Like they're quite different and like they're really melodic, but they still to this day, like if I stumble across one in my iTunes library, I'll listen to it and still be like, fuck yeah, that sounds nice, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, after that, mate, Ableton, like, I was just like hooked, mate. I was working full time as a tradesman, 7 a.m. start to 3 p.m. in the Arvo, 4 p.m. in the Arvo. But then I'd go to the gym and get home around 6 or something, and I was just on it for hours, like till 10 p.m. Like I couldn't wait, you know. And there was never really felt like I had to force myself to get on there.
Yeah,
I just loved it, and like as you probably know, like, at the start, it's so hard because you feel like you're just banging your head against a brick wall.
Yeah.
And not making any progress, and you're not anywhere close to like getting something sounding good or how you want it. And one of the things I learned quickly was producers never really sit down, like rarely, with an idea in their head and then it just comes out bang like that. Yeah. Like you just sit down and then you just, with an open mind, and you just see what comes out, you know?
That's definitely the trick I find.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's way more successful as a technique to creating a track than if you're trying to just bang out this one idea that's just not working. And that was definitely a learning curve for me.
I really feel that it's one of them where if you sit down and just accept the fact that don't aim for finishing a track in a certain style or trying to complete a track in a day, because it's not going to happen. Just sit down and just see what happens, experiment, because that's where you're going to get your originality from, and that's the way you're going to learn more, rather than, because I feel like a lot of people, and I'm definitely guilty of this, of sitting down and doing the same methods over and over again. Finish that track, sit down and do exactly the same all the way through, and I don't evolve. My tracks don't evolve a rate that I'd like them to. So now when I sit down, instead of starting out with the same, I mean, I always start out with percussion elements, but I'll introduce something different, just try and make it a little bit different. So I think once you accept that you're almost not gonna do what you want to do, it's gonna be a more fluent. It's gonna be a more fluid process.
Yeah, for sure. If you accept that, then you're going to be a happy man or woman. I think I remember. I don't know how long it was. It was at the very start. Actually, maybe 2 years in, 3 years into me using Ableton. I think it's been about 5 now. I saw an interview with Ben Rao, and he was talking about starting new tracks or whatever. And I used to every time I'd start a new track, I'd start from scratch and I'd look for new samples always, because I thought, this one has to be different, and I was all about originality. But he said, like, you can use the same drums, like, because A, that's what's going to give you your sound, and B, it's going to help you with the writing process. Like, if you're spending an hour, 2 hours trying to find the right samples every time, your creativity is dead,
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess that seems like something that might be obvious, but for me, in my head, I was just always like, all right, I used those samples last track. I can't use them again this track because I have to make something different. And I have to put that pressure on myself. And exactly what he said is right. Like, as soon as you do that, your creativity is dead. There's no workflow, there's no nothing. And at that time, I was writing in arrangement view too, which is, when I finally swapped over to session view, it was like another just like awakening
dimension.
Fucking hell, mate.
It speeds things up so much. That was one thing I found as well, that for me, it's the first 2-3 hours where I'm most creative. And if I sit down and just get the ideas down and write the music, that's when the idea comes together faster. But what I used to do was sit down, write the music, and then do the processing at the same time, and it slowed me right down. And 3 hours in, I'm like, I've heard this track too many times now. Like, I'm going to start another one, and it just used to wind me up. So, Sidney Charles, on one of his tutorial videos, he talks about less is more, and that really spoke to me, because he says, you can add as much as you want, but at the end of the day, if you're not starting out with the right sample, then you're just polishing a turd. He said, go through and find the right sample, and then when you found a sample that you like, put it in a folder, and then in that folder, that all the samples you like. So you can just drag it in, right, I know I like this 909 hat, throw that in, boom, and then you can just carry on with the creative process, rather than putting in a hi-hat that you don't like, putting a compressor, EQ, saturate, putting everything on it for no reason, and then end of the day, it's still not sounding good because you're not happy with it. So that's definitely one thing I've tried to incorporate into it, just maximizing on the creative process in the first few hours when you start out.
Yeah, mate, 100%. Like, I think you made two really good points there that I can relate with. I used to process at the same time. So I was pulling the sounds in, making an 8-bar loop, but I was just EQing, compressing, sound check, like everything at once, because I was like, well, while I'm making this track, I don't want things to be clashing and stuff, because then I won't really know how it's actually going to sound. Instead of just getting ideas down in the creative process and then going back at the end and if things are clashing, then I have to clean them up after, it was another real eye opener for me. I don't know where I first heard it, or maybe I was working with someone else, and their workflow was different. And eventually, when I got home and just started in session view, just started getting loops down and ideas and and then I wasn't worrying about processing. It just flowed so much more naturally. Yeah. And then from there on, I was just writing like bang, 3-4 ideas, maybe 5-6 ideas a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like different ones, and like even sometimes getting them structured and actually sounding like a track. And the other thing that you mentioned, which I'm a pretty organized person, like not OCD or anything, but especially when it comes to music, like I've got folders there, like top samples 2020. You jot that down, and that's hats, snares, percussion, bass, like bass lines or whatever. Like it's so much easier to go to that and pull out sounds from there, you know, when you know that they're going to be quality.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, I guess, it helps you with the time spent. Going back to what I said before, you don't want to be wasting an hour, 2 hours looking for samples. And B, like you said before, man, you start to get your own sound going. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's your own unique, like sort of stamp, I guess. Another big thing that I learned was sampling, you know, from other artists' tracks that you like. You know, there was a time when I was just like, I had these certain kicks that I was using, and I was using them all the time, but they still just didn't sound as good as like my favorite artist's big, like really strong kicks. And then I was like, fuck it, you know, one day I'm just gonna pull this kick out of this track. It's the first kick. It's got no hat, no snare, no nothing on it. And I pulled it in, and I still use that kick to this day because it's just so good.
It works.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's nothing, and you don't even need to process that. You know what I mean? Like on my kicks, I was doing so much processing, and they were coming out like strong and meaty. Like I think it was my EP on Conspiracy Foreigner EP. I think it was probably 2 or 3 years ago. That was when I was really processing my kicks, and at the time I thought they sounded really good. And I was like, I'm a gun producer. I'm doing all this processing. But now, mate, I've got a certain few kicks that I toggle between, and I don't process them, mate. Honestly, they don't do any processing because they just sound so fucking good by themselves.
Yeah, I'm the same as you, mate. And I use I'm on a platform called Damaso EMC, and Rendr's on it as well, just offering feedback for tracks for artists on there. And he started out, one of the first things he put on there was just like 909 stuff, all the 909 stuff. And then I downloaded that, and immediately I was like, oh, these are amazing. So I put them in a folder. But I had a real problem when I started out with accepting that you could use other people's samples, and you could use samples and sample packs. I had such a problem with thinking like, no, it's got to be 100% original. You know, you can't use anything from anyone else's music or anything from anyone else's folders. But then it clicks that how this electronic music is sample-based music. Like a lot of tracks, well, all tracks have samples in, and there's a high majority of tracks that use other people's samples compared to the minority of tracks that use original samples. So I had a real problem with that. And then when I kind of let that go and started to implement other people's samples, it just sped the process up so much. Because like you said, there's a kick in Damaso's pack. It's literally called Damaso Very Nice Kick. And I'm the same as you. I use it on every single track because it's perfect. I don't need any processing on it. It proper sticks out in the mix. It's got a punch. It's perfect. So once I accepted that you could use that, it sped the creative process up so much.
Yeah, for sure, mate. Like, I guess it's just a learning curve, mate. Like you know, I guess your mind's in the right place, your heart's in the right place, thinking I've got to do everything originally. But if you don't have a room full of drum machines and shit,
exactly,
then that's not really going to happen, mate. You know, like I started out for years, mate, just nothing. I had nothing. Like I don't even think I had a MIDI keyboard. Maybe I had a MIDI keyboard that I didn't use that much, and all I could really do was samples, or you know, like write a MIDI in from a drum rack or something like that. But I was always using samples, you know, and just changing them to my liking. But as the time went on and I started to get a bit of gear, like then my sound started to evolve a bit more. But that was more so not related to the drums, because I already had like these really nice drums samples that I built up over the years, and I'll just use them in different ways. But more so in terms of I guess synths, and running like MIDI through some different sort of synths, and like I have some EPs coming out this year that you'll really start to hear that
more
influence.
Synth use.
Yeah, mate. I actually, me and Eli had a studio in Sydney for no long time, maybe 5 months, if that. And we used to go there, and there was a heap of gear in there because another one of Eli's friends he had like so much gear, and the place was like looked like a spaceship. But by the time I got used to using the stuff, the lockdown came in, and we couldn't really go to the studio anymore. And then the lease ran out, and I was like, fuck, I'm not going to keep paying each week for this, you know. So I went back to my little dungeon at home, and to be honest, I felt comfortable there anyway. You know, I never really got into the groove in the studio. I think maybe partly because I knew that it was only a 6 month sort of thing, and then we might have to look somewhere else, or partly because I didn't really know, it wasn't my gear, and I was just still learning it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a massive thing. You need to feel comfortable where you're making your music, because like, even things such as if there's shit laying around everywhere, you know, like, it's going to be hard for you to get in a creative process.
Yeah, exactly.
Personally, I think, I mean, everyone's different, but
yeah,
if I sit down and then there's shit all over the desk and there's stuff everywhere, or even if, you know, my room's a mess, and like, I think there's always something like a cloud hanging over my head that I can't just completely let go and get into that thing.
Exactly.
And I don't think people realize subconsciously what kind of effect that has.
Yeah,
on you.
If you're working in a clean environment, then it puts you in a clear headspace.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's like templates. Go on.
Yeah, well, mate, I was just about to say, yeah, templates. Yeah, so my template, I just did this because, as I said before, like, I think I'm just an organized person, and without anyone ever telling me, I just knew that the way I'm going to get the best out of this session is if I open it up and I have things organized, you know what I mean? So my template is like color coded. There's groups for drums and all that, and it's just so much easier. And then even when you go to arrange, I know all my drums are some sort of shade of green, and any other percussion is like some sort of shade of blue. The bass is always brown or red or whatever, and the vocals are always like orange or pink. So that for me is just so easy. And then sometimes I go to work with other producers, and it's just like
it's a mess. How do you know what you're doing?
Yeah, honestly. And it is good because you learn the way other people work, and because you can't just always stay in your comfort zone, and because you're never going to be able to collaborate, and you're never going to learn new techniques and stuff. But I think it should be like definitely just like a no-brainer that everyone who values their work as a producer should have a template that's set up and organized, you know, and it doesn't matter what your creative process is. I think you should have that there, you know, and if anyone ever asks me, you know, like, that's what I tell them, you know, it's a massive factor in
that's
productivity.
One thing that I've learned in the past year. I was 100% one of those people that I'd start with something, and then I'd go into a synth, and then there'd be a drum, and then there'd be a synth, and then there'd be a loop, and then I used to be on Logic. I used to look back at projects and go, "What the fuck is going on here?" But whereas now in Ableton, I started out doing it, and then I saw on Damaso's channel again, Toman uses a template, and on his videos he says it's just a little talk through of how his template works, and then he put it available to download. So I put it in that, and I thought, why am I so slow at realizing all this stuff? I immediately set it as my template, changed a few things around, but immediately you load it in and you're ready to go. You just got to throw sounds in. There's the EQ on everything. There's saturation. There's like reverb on the groups, and everything's in groups. Everything's color coordinated, like you said, and it's so simple. And sometimes I have to make sure that I keep doing it, because sometimes I'll drag a loop in at the end, and then I need to make sure, I need to drag that into the loops bit and color coordinate it, and you just know what's going on, and everything's in sections. So if you go, right, there's something that's not right in the percussion, just jump to the percussion rather than going 67, 68, no 33. It's somewhere. Where is it? It's a nightmare, isn't it? And you just slow yourself down. Like, I think you need to give yourself the best chance of allowing yourself to be as productive as possible.
Yeah, and I think generally speaking, man, like, the people who don't have that don't release as many tracks. They don't release as much music. Like, it's, you know, obviously everyone, as I said, everyone works in different ways, and for some people that might work, and they might not have a problem with figuring it out. But from what I've seen personally, those people aren't releasing music prolifically. You know what I mean? They're not, and they're not continuously. They might be good at getting a heap of ideas down, you know, always jamming and getting ideas into session view. But mate, when it comes to arranging, how the fuck can you? Yeah. How can you possibly, you know, work in some sort of flowing sense? Yeah,
when everything's everywhere, you set yourself.
But hey, you know, that's just me personally, and I'm not like bagging anyone, but just my personal experience,
Yeah. I feel like it's one of them where the people that don't do it, like I said, there's absolutely nothing against it, but when they realised that's a possible way to do it, when they do it, they're like, why have I not been doing this? I've not been doing this earlier. It can be a bit of a slog organising it, but especially at the end with mixing down. Before I started doing it, I was exporting everything to Logic and doing it in that. But then I'd be like, what is? And I wouldn't even name tracks, mate. So I'd be like, I don't even know what half this stuff is. So I just thought, I can't be bothered doing that. But whereas now everything's named, so I know exactly what it is. And like you said, it just makes things so much more productive. But going on to that then, so what's your creative process for writing music?
Mate, like you said, it does differ from project to project, but if in generally speaking, I think I've always got that one or two or three kicks in there, just with a 4/4, just to give me something to work from, and I guess I'll try to write the drums first always. I think the snare is super important. That's usually first thing to go in. If you got a nice kick, nice snare, then you can add some hats around that. Lately, because where I am here in Barcelona, I've got absolutely no gear. Like I'm working like the bare minimum. So back to when I was working on Logic, yeah, mate, everything in the box, and like it's good because it's been challenging. But what I'm doing now is what we were talking about before. I'm sampling a lot, old school tracks like 80s. Like any genre, like some 80s house stuff, but also some 80s hip hop and even just pop stuff. Like I'm hearing drum loops, and I think I used a drum loop from the Spice Girls track the other day. And you'd never know. Like you would never, no one would ever have any idea. Yeah. But it was just a nice little 8-bar loop or something, and I just cut it out and used it. And I'm doing that a lot more in my current situation. So if I find something like that, it really helps to kick the track off in the right direction.
Yeah.
If I'm not using a loop like that, then I'll just start to write my bass, and I guess from there it's sort of if you have a strong kick bass and hats and snare and sort of thing, then you can start to add some percussion, or I think it just depends where you want to take the track then, because anything could happen really. Like you could find a nice vocal, you could find a nice synth, like
it completely changes it up.
But generally, I guess if I had to really say, I guess what the majority of the time I'm doing is like hats and snare, and then bass line.
Yeah.
And then obviously the main elements for the sort of stuff that we're working with,
So do you build the groove from the percussion first, and then work everything around that?
Yeah, most of the time, unless I have an idea in my head for a bass line.
Yeah.
And then I'll write the bass line first, and then build the groove off that. But yeah, I would say majority of the time I'm writing the percussion first,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so when you incorporate loops, do you leave them raw, or do you have a twist on them to make them your own? Like if you do, what processes do you put on them to make them your own loops?
Mate, like it depends from project to project. Sometimes, as you said, less is more, if a loop's fucking good, and I drag it in and it sounds sick, I won't touch it, I might put a bit of reverb on it or EQ a little bit. Sometimes a little bit of compression, because a lot of the older tracks, they're not as tight, I guess, especially if it's another genre, it maybe tighten it up a little bit for the kind of stuff I'm making.
Yeah.
But I try not to do that, man, because I went through a big phase in making music where I was just squashing everything, I was over compressing, because I thought that's what good producers do. The more they process, the better they are.
Yeah.
And I remember they were just coming back from the masters, just sounding like fucking shit. Like I remember just saying to my mate, like, it sounds like it's being run over with a steamroller.
Put through a shredder.
And like I think every producer goes through that phase for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I was like, fuck it, I'm like, I don't care that I've done fuck all processing on this track. I'm leaving it because it sounds good how it is.
Yeah.
And
that's a very hard thing to do. That's a very hard thing to do, accepting that mate. It sounds good. Why do I need to then add some more stuff? But subconsciously, like I was saying before, you have it, and then you feel like you have to, obviously you have to EQ it, but you have to EQ it, and then you have to put saturation on it, and then, you know, put something else to modulate it and all that. And then you think, do you know what? It was actually better than, and then you begin to ruin it. The more you put on it.
It's not sounding how you wanted it to sound before. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like the reason that you liked that loop or that sound was because it sounded like it sounded, you know?
Yeah.
And it goes back to what you were saying before. Is just sound selection.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a really good piece of advice from a mastering engineer in Sydney. The same mastering engineer who I was like, fuck, why are my tracks coming back sound so shit? And then he actually like shout out to Klaus Hill. I think a lot of people know him in Oz, but he works with a lot of artists around the world.
Is he the go-to guy?
He's the first. What's that?
Is he the go-to guy in Oz? The guy that everyone uses?
He is a go-to guy. I wouldn't say he's the go-to guy because there's just these days you can get it mastered from anywhere around the world. You know, like we use Rob Small. I think
Rob Small,
legend.
He's a geezer.
He's quality work. You know.
Yeah, so professional as well. He's one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
If it isn't working, he won't try and, you know, polish the turd. He'll send it back and say, look, I need to work with the right tracks. So we'll say what needs changing. So shout outs to Rob because he's very professional and an absolute expert in his field.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful I haven't received the track back from him yet. So fingers crossed. But but back to Klaus. He was originally who we started off using for masters, and he actually called me one day because I was not only sending him stuff from the label like Conspiracy, but just my own personal stuff as well that I'd either want to release as a free download or something like that. And he actually rang me one day, just told me straight up, he's like, mate, you're just choosing the wrong sounds, you know, like you got no power in sub bass, like there's no strength down in that low end, and your kicks are pretty light too, you know, they're a bit, so you just got to choose the right sound. And it's not about your processing, because obviously what I was doing was
in terms of percussion or everything.
Everything, mate.
Yeah.
So I used to use Massive for all my bass sounds and synth sounds, and I still do now. Obviously, that I got no hardware, but I would find a sound in there that I liked a certain aspect of it, but I thought, okay, I'm gonna try and change that sound into what I really want, and it ended up never really sounding like what. Or I'd get it to sound how I wanted it, but it would take out all the body of it or take out the essence of the original sound. And it was just ruining the tracks and the feel of the tracks. So, you know, I started to learn, or he called me straight up and said, yeah, and that was a good piece of advice, you know, and even though at the time I just felt defeated and I thought, well, fuck, you know, never going to be making tracks like how I wanted it to sound. But over time, you like, anything, mate, drums, bass, you know, the main elements like your kick and your snare, like it's so important that you get them right, you know.
Are you one of those people that if you find a sound and you think it might work, but then also you think like you're kind of not happy with it at the same time, so would you then work with that sound just because you kind of like it, or would you just go, no, if I'm not in love with the sound, I won't use it, and you're adamant on that?
Yeah, it's a tough question, man. I think the smart way to work is the latter. Don't work with it unless you love it. But I can't, you know, say that I'm always, you know, my workflow is perfect. You know, sometimes I've got all these different elements working, but the snare is something that I've put in there and I didn't quite like it. Yeah. But if I go and then spend an hour trying to find the right snare, then the whole track suffers, you know. So I might leave it in there until I've finished everything else, and then go back and change it, just so the work, as long as it doesn't sound like complete shit. But if it's that bad, then I'm wondering why did I put it in there? But yeah, I think generally speaking, like if you do end up in a situation where close enough is good enough, keep working, get everything else down.
Take note of it,
and then you can go back to it at the end, you know. But I guess if you're starting a track from scratch, you know, try to be a little bit more careful with what you're putting in, and then it comes back to what we were saying before about having that bank of your favorite sounds there, so you don't really get put in that situation.
Yeah. So
Like
what are you? Go on. Sorry, mate.
so yeah, like these days, yeah, because I have that bank of sounds built up, I'm really getting myself in a situation where I'm going back and forth replacing samples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that, with that bank of sounds, is that just the percussion, or do you have presets saved within Massive or whatever other synths you use that are your go-tos and you'll just modulate them?
For sure, percussion is the main thing. But then I've got like effects. I've got like this. A few years ago, my mate gave me this massive folder of vocal samples. Like it's just like infinite vocals,
Yeah.
and there's so many shit ones in there. And you got to really sift through it, but there's some really good ones, you know, like really, really good ones. So when I find the good ones, I put them in that bank. Any one shots, like stabs, some bass sounds that I might want to maybe drag into a simpler and then write in with a MIDI or something. But in terms of my synths, I've just been working with Massive for so long that I just know what sounds I like.
Yeah.
The only time I'll really just go on a little bit of an adventure in Massive looking for stuff is like pads and synths, and because there's just so many different options. And then once you choose one sort of preset, you can just tweak it to however you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So where do you get your influences from when you're making music?
These days?
Oh, yeah. Well, when you start from Oz and then from where you are now.
Mate, so for me, Aussie band Rufus, just like, I don't know, you know him?
Who's that?
Rufus?
No.
So they're a band, you know, but they make like electronic sort of music, and just like, mate, they're just, for me, it was just like, yeah, I don't know, you know the power of music, man. When you hear, like, these guys just never put a foot wrong for me. They had an album called Atlas that I reckon I've listened to full over 100 times, you know, like maybe more. And then Bob Moses, similar, that they're a live duo that I first came across at Lost Paradise, the New Year's Eve festival in Australia. And we were just walking past them after seeing like, might have been Carl Craig or something like that. And we're like, fuck, who are these guys, you know? And even though those two acts are nothing like what I make, you know, they got me into music. If Bob Moses, their New Year's Eve, no, it wasn't New Year's Eve, Bob Moses Burning Man set, I think maybe 2013. It was just a mix that me and my mates just listened to so many times, and we'd go away on the weekend away and it would just be on repeat, you know what I mean?
It starts in a track.
We'd just be laying down there, like just thinking, fuck, like these sounds are just crazy, man. And I think maybe that was actually what pushed me to go from like a part-time Logic user to just a full-on, like, you know, all the time, because I walked away from listening to that mix on repeat just thinking like, that is what I want to do, you know? And then Rufus, the same, every time they put it out an album, you know, it's just like incredible, you know, they're evolving, but they still have their sound, and there's just like every track is just ridiculous. And to this day, they're still two of my favorite acts. But I've come obviously such a long way. And then these days, you know, for me, it's funny actually, a mate of mine just put like a little question on Facebook like 2 days ago, like just a question out to any like artists or fans, who are 3 artists that just, no matter what, if it's a mix and EP, they just always do it for you, you know? And it got me thinking, and so I already have an answer for this question prepared. Sweely for sure.
Sweely, yes.
Gene on Earth.
Yeah.
In terms of the mix, I think Hamish and Toby. I think they're from the UK too, man. They're, you know, always like whatever they bring out, mix wise, you know, to me it's just, I can listen to the whole thing all the way through.
Yeah.
With just full interest. And then I think I.O. Mullen is very different to those guys, but I really like his production.
Yeah.
And I saw him, mate, when I saw him play at Sash, I think it was last year, it was I.O. Mullen, Michael James, that his set was just ridiculous.
Michael James as well. He's another one.
Yeah, Michael James.
Such a good producer. But it's like Sweely and Gene on Earth, especially with my group of mates. They're 2 artists that have really caught our attention recently, because I mean, Brad will tell you he's absolutely in love with. I'm not sure what set it's a Sweely set, and he's absolutely in love with it. He said because you just don't know what's coming next, and it's an unbelievable set. And he'll just send me like a screen recording, like mate, listen to this, and I'm like, oh, it's a tune. And then like a day later, it'll be the same mix. He'd be like, oh yeah, listen to this, and it'll just be little snippets from all these, and he'll spend endless hours trying to find the tracks, and then. With Gene on Earth as well, that's one thing, especially with his vinyl releases. I've got a few here now, but he's an exceptional producer, and a lot of people the transition in that way as well, because live producers like that, when you see them live, you just don't know what's coming. They're almost not playing any track that you know. It almost like Sweely, obviously Sweely plays live, so it's a complete whatever club you go to, you could have three sets on a weekend, and you'll hear three different sets, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's anticipation of not knowing what's coming. So I definitely agree with you there. And Ian Mullen is so credible.
Yeah, mate.
You never get a bad track or mix out of him.
Yeah, exactly, mate. It's just I don't know. It's just like so consistent. You know what I mean? And I think when I really like he really turned my head was his Lucky Fish. It was like a 3-part vinyl album, and there's like I think there's 11 tracks, and they're all just fucking ridiculous, mate. You know, I've just like played them over and over and over, and I just never get sick of them. But Liquid Earth's another one actually. And obviously he's got a few different aliases, but whatever he brings out on, whether it's Liquid Earth or Urulu, Senator Bongwater, they're all so good, you know. And I guess, and even within that little group, I think Huerta, yeah, mate, they're all just making such good music.
So
Fabe as well, mate. Fabe's been a big influence.
Fabe's on fire,
and he's just so consistent, mate. Like, you know, he says it himself. Just any interviews or videos, like he's just always doing something. He's always producing something, and he's always putting videos up. And that's just why he has such a strong following. You know?
Well, I think he says, doesn't he? Was it 25 years or 20 years of doing it every day? He said that's what's got me to this level.
Yeah, you're gonna get all right at it, aren't you?
Exactly. Yeah, no matter who you are, anybody can do it. But yeah, so when you listen to those artists and the music that they make, what is it you're pulling from it? Is it the synth use? Is it the groove of the percussion? What elements do you try and incorporate into your track? I'm just gonna turn this heater on, mate, because you're sat there in an open shirt, mate. I'm shivering here.
I'm actually a bit hot, mate. Yeah.
Oh, don't. I'm sat in the studio, and there's tiles on the roof, and then above that there's just nothing. So I'm sat here shaking. I was like, I hope you can't hear it on the mic.
No, I can't hear the heater anyway, man.
Oh, that's all good.
Like it's really like it's hard to really narrow it down, but I always find myself really like inspired with new ideas from his bass lines, like just funky and groovy, like it's still carrying like that 4/4, like it's just. But for both of those guys, Gene on Earth and Sweely, who are probably my two favorites at the moment, it's just the originality. You know, like you don't hear anything like that anywhere else.
No.
My biggest, it's not a hate. I'm just trying to dislike, I guess, in the music industry is just the how many artists are doing the same thing. That's just like, and I don't want to put anyone down. Like I'm not, obviously I don't have anyone specific in mind, but it's just like, if there's just so many tracks coming out that you can't, it could be one of 100 artists, you know, but when you hear Gene on Earth or Sweely, there's no mistaking
the standout, yeah.
That's who it is, you know, and same with Fabe, you know, there's no mistaking that. And that's what I try to do, and I always have. Just instinctively, I've never tried to obviously take as much inspiration and sample as much as you can, because that gives you a creative process. But yeah, I've always tried to, like, and early on, I really struggled to sign my music to labels because they weren't like of any specific style or genre. They were just their own thing. And that's why I released a lot on my own label. I guess that's why I even started the label, because they were just in between, I guess, what you would call genres. And I realized how valuable that is to me now, years on that I never really just tried to cut copy from any sort of style. And yeah, man, I'm really happy with, I guess, how my sound has progressed, and I'm still progressing, still learning, you know, as I said, like
the
even
whole
a year
thing's a
ago.
journey, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's just that, I guess, yeah, coming back, long story short, to your question, is just the originality, mate. Like, especially Gene's new EP, Super Blue, that just blew my mind, you know, it's crazy.
But it's that thing we go back to about, if you're in it for 20 years, you are gonna be unbelievably good at it. But it's branching out into what we were talking about earlier, that you have to experiment your own way. It's good to take influences from music, but then there's taking influences, and then there's trying to make that style. So you can take influences of bits you like, but then only take a certain layers of it, only take synth use, or only take, you know, like the certain grooves that they use, and then incorporate your own style, rather than trying to write a track that's exactly like that. Because then it was on Josh Baker's podcast, I think he was talking to Ben Rao, and either Josh or Ben said it, but they said, you know, everyone's trying to make one style at the minute, so where's the originality? You're not going to stand out from the crowd when you are in the crowd. And that really spoke out to me. That, so it goes back to what you're saying about the originality, and it's the main thing that you're going to do to break through as an artist is being recognized for your sound.
For sure. And that's, I think, the most common thing I say to guys, or whoever sends me demos for Conspiracy, is just, without saying, you know, this sounds like everything else, I just try to gently nudge them and say to them, try and find, you know, like, you got to try and find a little bit more of your own sound, you know what I mean? Like, this is a good track, it's well produced, but like, it sounds like every other track that comes through the inbox, you know what I mean? And I guess it might be a little bit of a hard pill to swallow for some people, to say to them, look, mate, sorry, but this sounds like 100 other tracks that I've received in demos. But I think ultimately it needs to be said, because it'll either set that producer or artist on a new path where they'll actually start to experiment a little bit more with their own creativity, or they might just be in it for the wrong reasons, I guess. And I don't know, they might hang up the boots, but I don't know, you know, it's not for me to say. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, I think that's the main thing. And I guess one of the only things, like, technical aspects of production will come, as you said. Like, if you're in it for long enough, you know, you're bound to learn a thing or two about processing, but the creativity is something that should be there from day one, and you can't really teach that, you know. It's just like, you got to sit down and just have that running in your mind, you know.
Yeah, you made two very good points there about, well, first of all, from a label's perspective, when you're going through the demos emails, you want to stand out immediately, because you'll know, listen to demos, you know straight away if a track's grabbed your attention, and if you want to sign it. So it's that standing out, because you go through and you hear a lot of tracks that are the same. Not that they're bad tracks, but labels always want to find that next sound, and be that sound, be that label that puts out that next sound. So that's one way of thinking about being original. But also what you're saying about, it's a hard pill to swallow. You might be the best producer at producing a track that sounds the same as a style that's already out.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a lot harder to be original. But in the long run, being the original artist is going to give you that longevity, and that's what's going to make you break through. Yeah,
for sure, mate. I think the best guys out there aren't necessarily the best at mixing down their track, or it doesn't even sound that good across all speakers or whatever. Like, but the tracks still get played because they're original, and they're sick, and they're unique. You know, when you hear them out, you're like, fuck, what is this? You know, but it doesn't matter how good the mix sound is. You know, like, that's why it's hard to say to some guys, look, mate, this is a really good track, and like, you're a good producer, but it's not special. You know,
it's very weird, isn't it? It's because it is, tracks can be exceptional. You can listen to it and you think, this is great, but you don't want to release it because it's nothing new. So
yeah,
it
exactly.
must be weird to hear that as an artist when they're trying to make it, that there's absolutely nothing wrong with your tracks, but
Yeah.
but we've heard it 100 times before.
Yeah, and I've had a few conversations with a few different like younger producers who have, I've said, mate, it's just not right for us, for Conspiracy, and they've said, oh, well, I just keep getting that answer, you know, like everyone says it's not a bad track, it's a good track and it's well made, but and that's when I was sort of opened up and I said, look, mate, if you want my honest opinion, I think you need to find a little bit more originality, you know. But yeah, so I think there's a lot of different labels saying the same thing and stuff, but unfortunately, but the reason is because, you know, it's a good style, you know, like whatever that style is that everyone's copying, like it's because
it works and it is good music.
It works. Yeah, it's good music, you know, like, but as you said before, like there's guys that are doing that style here.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be sending tracks of the same style but they're only here,
yeah,
you know what I mean. But if you've got your own style, it doesn't matter if you're here or here.
Yeah,
your own style,
they're setting the bar with that style because they're the best at it. So if you're trying to make tracks that style, you're always competing against them. Whereas if you create your own style, you can then set the bar for that style. Then other people will be trying to make in your style. So
yeah, exactly, man.
But it's like you said, it must be the hardest thing to hear. That it's a good track, good music. There's actually nothing wrong with it. It's just I've heard it a lot of times before.
Yeah, for sure, mate.
So
go on. Oh, well, hopefully, like, you know, if anyone watching this, you know, it's a bit of an eye opener and they can, you know, sort of see where we're coming from. But,
just be patient with it. Just be patient and trust the fact that it will take longer to be original, but it'll give you that A, longevity, and B, more of a chance of breaking through because people will get to know you for your sound. And you'll know that, sure. especially in recent times, makes you smashing it. So talk me through going from Oz to Barcelona. What prompted the move over there?
Mate, look, I can't remember when I first sort of this planted the seed in my mind, but it would have been at least 2 years ago, probably more accurately 2.5 years ago. I knew that I needed to sort of get over into Europe, anywhere in Europe really, so I could tour around and play gigs. I knew that even 2.5 years ago, I knew that sort of I had a strong enough work ethic that I was going to be releasing tracks consistently. I was just confident in my own, like in myself, that I would be able to consistently release tracks even 2 years ago. So I knew, okay, if I plan to get to Europe in a year and a half or 2 years, by that time, I'm pretty sure I'll have a fair few releases under my belt. And that was my thinking. So I started to, I guess, put plans into place and start slowly working towards them. I wasn't really sure where in Europe. I mean, I've been over here a few times for holidays, but every time it's just 4 days here, 5 days there, just getting absolutely, you know, blind and going to parties and not really remembering the cities at all. But musically, and you know, you got Paris, Berlin, Amsterdam, London. They're all amazing cities musically, but for me, growing up in Sydney and spending like the last probably 6 years living on the beach, you know, it's a big part of my life to be able to go down to the water and like reset, and definitely helps relieve any stress. And especially through the lockdown period when I was spending those long days at home in the studio, I'd just go down the beach and have a swim and like have a coffee, and you just feel like a new person, you know, and you come back and then your creativity starts again. So I knew that I needed to be somewhere near a beach. All right. So I was like, okay, the two main, I guess, requirements is a half decent music scene, and a beach,
and a half decent beach, not a UK
exactly,
beach.
Yeah, not a UK. It's got to have sand, not black rock.
Blackpool.
So, and I guess the third thing that really stood out in my mind was I really wanted to immerse myself in the culture. I didn't want to be that person who went there and lives there for 5 years and doesn't speak the language, you know. So I thought, you know, for me, really what like Spanish and French would probably be the two languages that I would want to learn the most. So, you know, I guess we put all those things together, and it was definitely somewhere in Spain on the coast. And I had a few mates here in Barcelona. So yeah, man, that was how the decision came about. And then I kind of just put my head down for a good year. Like I was still going out partying and stuff, but not as much. Like I really pulled it back and tried to save money. Because I was actually already in debt to my old man, to my dad. So
aren't we all, mate?
Yeah. He's such a fucking legend. He ended up, you know, letting me out of the debt because he knew how much that I really wanted to be over here. And
yeah,
I think he sort of realized that if I was left to pay off that debt, I was never getting over it. So and yeah, man, and then I started saving, and my brother, who I worked with, so my brother owns a gym in Sydney, and I used to like work there coaching and sort of doing a bit of a management role, and he was so good with me too, mate. So like just so supportive as well. So he sort of allowed me to work like flexibly at the gym and then still do my music.
Yeah.
And without the help of like, you know, my older brother and my dad, you know, helping me in those ways, I definitely wouldn't be here, and I definitely wouldn't have been able to.
It sounds like you're really grateful of having them supporting you and being around you.
Yeah, mate. Fuck, my whole, you know, all my family, you know, I got two brothers and my dad and my stepmom, just like, just the support. And they never, like, musician is not like musician is not a lucrative business where you're going to make a lot of money, you know, like it's just, as you know, it's just a passionate thing. And
yeah, it's doing what you love. That's the important thing about it.
Yeah, exactly. And my dad, when I first told him I wanted to move to Barcelona to pursue music, I could see in his eyes, he was like, fuck, you know, this is not a good idea. But he never questioned me, and he always did what he could to.
Good man.
Yeah, man. So I'm so lucky to have that support there, you know, and a lot of people don't have that, and I'm so grateful for it. And anytime, I did get in a shit situation, like I for example, I think I was supposed to move over here in May 2020, and in February, so just before the virus pandemic came about, my car just absolutely conked it, like blew out. Like, so I was relying on selling that car for cash, you know, and I was like, all right, well, the situation I'm in now is I'm gonna have to buy a new car for 3 months, then sell it for less, and lose more money, you know. But anyway, my dad and stepmom came to the rescue again, and they just lent me their second spare car, even though it was going to put them in a situation.
Yeah,
so,
respect for that.
And then, mate, you know, what happened was it went from May to December that I didn't get to fly out. So they let me have the car for nearly
Even
9
longer.
months. Yeah, mate. And they were paying the rent. Like, it was just like, you know, I can never explain like how grateful I am.
Yeah,
for those
I respect that
things.
gratitude. It's good that you acknowledge it. Do you think because you moved over here now, it's you can use that as a motivational technique to push you on to make it for yourself? Yeah, well, yeah, that's it, isn't it? Because like you've put your neck out on the line by saying to your dad that you want to move out here and you want to pursue it, and he had that reaction, which everybody would, wouldn't they? Every parent would. Yeah. It's like, oh, come on. My mum says, like, can you not just get a stable job? And like, well, no, because I don't want to sit in a boring, stable job the rest of my life.
Yeah.
What, do you use that as motivation to really show them what you can do?
Yeah, it's a hard one because I don't really ever seek any motivation. Like, I don't really need, like, I'm always just, all I want to do in my spare time is just make music, you know. I don't really need to like rev myself up and motivate myself to go and make a tune, or if I'm not making tunes, I'll try and be doing something else that's going to push me forward to where I want to be, you know. So it might be, you know, maybe some goals, like working on some goals, where I want to be, like just anything really for me, you know. I like to.
That's a good personality trait to be productive, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I can understand how some people struggle to find that motivation or drive to be constantly making it. But I guess, I don't know if it's luck or if it's inherited or if it's just a pure like love. I just don't need. All I want to do is just make music. You know, when I'm at
Yeah.
work, at the gym, I'm thinking about, I can't wait to get home and work on that tune or make a new idea. I've got ideas going through my head. And more recently in Barcelona here, with all the time on my hands, I've gone back to like an old love of drawing. I was just like, fuck, you know, I used to draw in high school. I loved it. And so I went down to the art store and picked up a sketchbook and a pencil and all that gear. And I came back, and then I started working on design, and I've actually designed did some illustrations for a new EP that's coming out next week on my own new label.
Have you sent us pictures of that? I think you have, haven't you?
I think so. Yeah. I think maybe I sent you the unfinished ones. Yeah. But I'll send you the.
Yeah, send it after
ones.
this, mate. I'm keen to see that.
Yeah. So I started working on a little avatar of myself, and then a logo. So the label's called. Well, I don't know when this is going to be released. It might be after the label launch, but it's called When Dogs Fly, and because my dog's currently stuck in Australia, while I'm trying to save up the money to fly her over here, and I'm obviously missing her like crazy. I haven't been away for her this long, you know, in 9 years.
Yeah.
Luckily, my dad once again is looking after her. So, but anyway, so the label's based around that, and I just had so much fun like drawing and designing, and I was just like backing like this childhood like creativity and like just the joy of just being creative in any sense. You know, it wasn't music. I probably didn't make music for a week or two, but because I was just drawing and designing and creating. And then I was really lucky to work with probably one of the most patient graphic designers I've ever come across in my life, mate. Like we went back and forth like a million times, and I could tell that I was really getting on his nerves, and I was apologizing every day, but he never once like lost his patience. And we got there in the end, and ended up paying him extra, obviously, for the work he was doing.
We've been there, mate. We changed graphic designers to a girl called Rachel Cottrell, mate, and fair play to her. Because it's one of them where like we'll send it over. Okay, this is definitely the last email. I promise you. Can you just do this? Of course, lads. Yeah, send it over.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Can we just change this one more? Actually, we don't like that. And do you know what? She doesn't even say anything. She doesn't even question it. She just does the job. So fair play to her. Because
I'll give a shout out to Dan Elwood from Elwood Designs, mate. He's a fucking legend, and I'm really happy with the result. You know. Like I said, like just once again, just grateful that it was him that I was dealing with and not someone else.
Patience is a big thing in graphic design, as I've learned, which is one thing that I don't think I would have if I was dealing with us, to be honest.
Yeah, it's hard, you know, because you know he understood that at the moment, you know, I wasn't working, and at the same time I didn't want to like pay him less than what his work was worth, but he was like, you know, look, you know, I'm happy to be negotiable on the price and stuff, and but ended up paying him extra because of what a legend he was. But yeah, it's just, so now this is a new project for me. Like Conspiracy is still obviously my main focus and label, but I'm doing this little Bandcamp label launching next week. I think February 11th or 12th it's going to be out, and it's just cool to see my own illustrations along with my music as well.
It's kind of a full creative project, isn't it?
Exactly. Do you think
that's why you love the music so much? Because when you're a kid as well, you love the drawing, so internally you just love being creative, and you can channel that energy into music as well as art.
For sure, mate. I mean, it's funny because the boys from Conspiracy, there's 5 of us, and we always say, like, because when we started doing parties, like our parties always dress up, like always, you know, non-negotiable. Every party we've ever done is dress up, and we build our own stage every time. We always try to do it in a different location. But the thing we just love is just like, as we're about to start building a stage or designing a party, it was just like, let's create, boys, let's create, you know, and it's just like that excitement, you know, and like I can't, and we'll be having drinks the night before, and we'll be like, fuck, I can't wait to create, you know.
Oh, I love that. That's good energy, that, mate.
Yeah, it came like it just became a kind of bit of an unofficial thing. Fuck, you know, let's create. And once everyone's in that mood, like you said, once everyone's in that vibe, it's just on, you know, like, and the juices are flowing. So
if
it's
there's 5 of you in that creative mindset, you know, the list is endless
yeah.
of what you can do.
Yeah, exactly. And we've been through phases. We started out with four of us, and that was when we were just a party. We weren't a record label, and it was for one of the boys' birthdays. We did a big party, and it was dress up down south coast of New South Wales. And then, yeah, I sort of went away, and by the time we were going to do our second party, we knew we wanted to be a record label, and there were still 4 of us, and then we ended up bringing another couple of guys on board. I think then became 5, and then it became 7. I think at one stage there was 8 of us in the crew, you know, like, which was tough, you know, definitely tough, because everyone's creative, everyone's got their own visions of what they want for the label and the parties. And we made it work, you know, we always had a good time, but there was definitely, it's much harder with so many people.
Yeah.
And then slowly guys had their own projects and started to break off. And yeah, and we whittled it down, it just whittled itself down, you know. It wasn't like we were like, all right, we need to make some cuts, you know, like final team.
Apprentice kind of deal. You're fired.
Yeah, exactly. And we're still all best mates, you know. It never really affected, which we are lucky for, but it never affected our friendships. We're still super close.
Yeah. It's good to hear you on that side of it, because with me and Brad, you know, there's only 2 of us. And with the visions that we have, we're both very much on the same wavelength, and we both love that.
Yeah.
But he's at university, I'm working full time, so you're trying to push the brand and be very forward thinking, whilst having a finite amount of time. So it's very hard with 2 of us, and we always think if we had more of us, then we could, you know, delegate tasks out and see if that could work. But then it's good to hear someone from, I mean, you've gone the complete other way with it. It sounds like at one point with 8 of you, 8 seems like quite a lot, but it's, I suppose, if you're on the same wavelength and you're driving the brand in the same direction, then it can work, can't it? But it then comes into people, everyone's got their own opinion, haven't it? And there's nothing wrong with that, but
like if everyone had the same opinion, it'd be kind of weird, you know, like there wouldn't be any, like,
no thinking outside the box, would there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it definitely teaches you patience and tolerance, because, you know, more than, you know, many times it's the majority vote, and there could be 5 people who want one thing and 3 people want the other thing, and you just gotta
bite your lip and accept that you're outnumbered.
That's it, you know. And but it didn't mean like that there was any less value on that idea or anything, and it always turned out good, you know. Oftentimes you are down the track and you realize, fuck, that was actually a good move. I'm glad that I was wrong, you know?
Yeah. It is a very good feeling to eat that humble pie and go, do you know what? I'm glad, for the brand's sake, I'm glad we made this decision, because it was the right decision. It's a very good feeling to be wrong sometimes, even though you might not like it at first.
Yeah, for sure, mate. But like, coming back to what you said, you know, where there's just 2 of you, it is good to have. Obviously you guys are super close and on the same wavelength, so you're always going to be sort of simpatico and working like in a nice constant sort of way. Like, you're never going to get to a point where you butt heads so much that production comes to a complete halt, you know. But you know, the hard thing is, you don't want to, if you bring on a 3rd person or whatever to ease the workload, it's very hard to find someone
that's immediately in tune with your direction.
Yeah, for sure, man. I remember exact same situation, but not in a musical sense. So at the gym, it was just me and my brother for a while, and we were just under a lot of stress, you know. There's just 2 of us coaching all the classes and the personal training sessions and doing all the admin and everything, and we were just sort of burnt out big time, you know.
Yeah.
And we really needed someone else to come on board, but mate, it's just so hard to find someone to fit, not only who has their qualifications, but to fit into the vibe of the gym and become friends with the people that you're friends, like, because, you know, when you're working in a gym every day and you're seeing the same people doing classes and stuff, like, they become your best friends, you know.
Yeah, of course.
You're seeing them so often, you see them more than your family, you know. And you need that person to come in and slot into that role, and you want them to be getting along, and there just needs to be a good atmosphere.
Yeah. there's two sides of it, isn't there? Because you think someone could come in and immediately take the weight off, because there's never a time when me and Brad can switch off, which we're not bothered about that. Like, we love doing what we do, but we can never switch off, because for me personally, I'm always conscious of always staying ahead. And I feel like if you switched off for a month, you're a month behind. And it goes back to what you said at the start about like to be 6 months ahead in terms of releases, everything's sorted then. So you can never switch off. But then you're bringing someone in that, are they immediately going to understand the direction of the brand, and are they immediately going to click and know, right, I know exactly what you mean. What about this idea? So, and then if it doesn't work, you think, and then you're dealing with that situation. So there's so many factors towards it. But if it goes right, it'll go perfectly right. If it goes wrong, it'll go completely wrong.
Yeah, man. I think that, like, obviously I'm not giving you advice, but like the best thing, you guys got a good thing going, and I think definitely needs to be organic. If you want to have someone who's got that right vibe for Rendr, you know what I mean? Because it happens so naturally for you two. And what you've got working now, even though you might be, your brain's absolutely fried, working super hard, but at the end of the day, it's working for you guys, And it's because you guys are such hard workers that you're finding success with all that sort of stuff. Mate, my earpods are just going, so I'm just going to grab the heady.
Yeah, no worries, mate. I was going to go to the toilet. Give us 2 seconds.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, all good, man.
Sweet.
So, going on to kind of rounding off on these questions. But what are you planning to capitalise on now you've moved to Europe? What's your game plan?
Mate, so this has been, I always had a sort of game plan, if you want to call it, in my mind, even before I got over here. And that was sort of, as I said before, I knew that I had a heap of releases coming out. And I know that even though there's no gigs and stuff right now, I sort of want to, start talking to some agencies about, maybe some booking stuff, just get my name out there for them before all these releases start coming out, it's just in advance, so I can sort of have a little bit of an introduction. I don't know whether it may be whoever it may be. But anyway, I want to sort of get that going, and then by the time gigs open up, I'm hopefully going to be able to travel around.
Hit the ground running and get going, yeah.
Like, I don't really want to, like, I'm not really here to travel around and on holidays and sightseeing and stuff. Obviously, I will do that, but for me, I'm just really focused on trying to on work at the moment, and any spare money is going to get my dog over here.
You start GoFundMe, mate.
Yeah, no, actually, it's funny that you say that, because when I left Australia, all the members at the gym, as like a going away present, they all chipped into a GoFundMe to go towards her flight. And yeah, like, I got a little bit choked up when they presented it to me. I think
how much is a flight?
Fuck, mate.
It's a lot.
It's so before COVID, the quote was from Sydney to London was $5,500.
Jesus.
Aussie.
Was it flying first class?
No, I don't know. I think because you got to pay for the person's ticket who has to come with the dog.
With the dog, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and then
pay for your dad to come out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good option, man. But then the next, the last quote I got because of COVID and all that is $7,500. So it's just going up. And
wow.
that's just to London. I would have to then fly to London and drive her back down, because it's just way too expensive to fly from London to Spain.
That is an absolutely crazy amount of money, mate. I did not realise it'd be that much.
Yeah, it's fucking, it's a hard pill to swallow, but
yeah,
I'm definitely not gonna leave her there. When the time comes and things are sort of open back up, I'll 100% be getting her over here. Because as I said, she's like my best mate, and I've been with her for 9 years, and it's hard, leaving her there.
Yeah.
But
well,
I went off on a bit of a tangent there.
I can see that you're welling up a bit. I was going to say when we get the repress for the vinyl, we'll put a little disclaimer at the bottom. All proceeds are going to the Nate's Dog to Barcelona fund.
Yeah, exactly, man. Well, that's pretty much what this next label that I'm launching next week is about. You know, like,
oh, of course, yeah. Was it so? If dogs could fly, is it?
When dogs fly.
When dogs fly. Right.
When dogs fly.
When you announce that, mate, let us know. I'll give a big backstory around it and pull on the heartstrings, get the violin out.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Hopefully the people get around it, you know. So it's a 4-tracker. Originally, I was going to do 8-track album, but I thought I'll just spread it out over like however, because at the moment I've got such a busy schedule with music. Like for the next foreseeable future, I guess, even maybe a little bit too much that I've taken on, which is definitely a learning curve for me, but sort of all came in at once and I was like, yeah, that sounds sick. You know, some of my like favorite labels are hitting me up for tracks and I'm like, fuck yeah, of course, you know? And then you look at the schedule and it's like, fuck, how am I going to fit all this in? So
yeah.
I decided to just strip it back to 4 tracks and then I can release another 4 down the track. And it also gives me an opportunity to be creative again with the new artwork, which is a big thing because, like I had so much fun designing this artwork that I want to do it again.
Yeah.
You know, so now I've got the concept and I'll just change it up a little bit for the next one. And I've got so many tracks sitting there, you know, that I can just be, you know, anytime there's sort of a bit of a lull, you know, I can release a new EP on Bandcamp and hopefully, the fun stuff.
Get some proceeds towards the main goal. Well, that's quite a nice segue into the last question. And so, what are your plans for 2021? Obviously, limited to the current world situation, but just I've got a lot of, like as I said, I've got a lot of releases coming up, so there's never going to be a lull. Well, this whole year, pretty much every month, I've got either an EP or a VA coming out. I think I know your next final one with out on a certain label that we share the studio with.
Yeah. I'm not sure when that. I'm not sure when that's coming. I think
I don't think it's far off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was speaking to the lads the other day. But that remix artist is absolutely ridiculous.
It's good. So, actually, before that, we've got a conspiracy EP coming out. Me and Elijah, an EP that we wrote together. It's kind of like, I guess, the second part to our last EP together on the label, and that's just Digi. And then, that'll be after this Bandcamp release, I think. And then, mate, I've got that EP that you were talking about. I'm not sure how much I can say about it now. And then, I think I've got about 6 records coming out this year. Yeah.
A productive year ahead then.
Yeah, for sure. And in my goal or my plans is just obviously to just keep writing music. Currently looking at a new apartment in a different spot in Barcelona. Once I get my own space, I'll be able to settle in a bit more. And it's got a spare room that I'm going to turn into a studio.
Nice.
I'm hoping that we get this place, you know, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But I know actually for the first time, not the first time, but like I'll have a proper studio in there and I can actually maybe start looking at some gear and stuff.
Yeah.
Even though it's kind of hard to justify buying gear.
Dog
gear. Yeah.
That'll show where your heart really lies, mate.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I don't know. The dogs that definitely takes precedence. But I've got a controller still, a little Korg EMX1s in Australia with Elijah. So I think he's going to ship it over to me. So I'll at least have one bit of gear there. But yeah, I'm just going to keep writing music, mate. You know, like I'm actually coming out with some good ideas, even though everything's in the box, and it's been a good challenge for me again to go back to that. Yeah. I got so comfortable writing tunes on like with hardware and all that sort of stuff, which at the start, that was the challenge, evolving to hardware, and now sort of devolved back to,
gone back to basics.
Yeah. But I'm like, two of the tracks I've written in a lot, like this year, man, it's probably two of my favorite tracks for sure. You know,
That's wicked.
They definitely sound different, but no less quality.
Yeah.
For sure, you know.
So, and then you're planning to, hopefully when things kick off, you can then capitalize on having your name around everywhere with all these releases to then move into gigs. I mean, I think you're definitely in the right place for it. One thing I was going to say, I was thinking today on the way here, was obviously Barcelona's the home of Elro. So that might be a good label to get in with. And Della Swing, who we're talking to at the minute, I could put your name in there if you want and throw any tracks you got over, because if you could get on an Elro record or to an Elro party or play at an Elro party, I think that'd be crazy exposure for you. So that might be one thing to consider, considering where you are at the minute.
Yeah, I remember Elro was just a big name, obviously, for a long time, and I remember back in, it would have been 5-6 years ago, thinking like pretty disappointed that we weren't in Ibiza for the party or whatever. We missed out on it, and it was always a big thing. But I think these days, the music I'm writing it probably wouldn't suit that party. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Even though like I can imagine playing at one of those parties, you think like that'd be huge. You know what I mean? But you've also got to look at weighing up. There's been a lot of good opportunities that I've reluctantly passed down because I just think, is my music going to be received properly in that community? I guess you know it's a hard one to. It's definitely a hard one to say, you know, like as an artist or even just a person, like a human, like turning down good opportunities that you know can help you get you where you want to be or whatever, for sure. But am I doing it for the right reasons, you know? Yeah,
I completely understand that. It's internally, it might not feel like the right thing, but what I would say would be never close an open door.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So even if it means you get in contact with him and then he listens, because at the end of the day, because it's his party, what he's involved with, it could be at his discretion. So you might think, is it going to work? And he'll go, of course this will work. You'd be ridiculous to turn it down, and then you could play and you know the idea of what you thought it would be flipped on its head, and it could be really successful. But then again, at the same time, he might listen to it and go, yeah, I mean, it's unreal music, but it might not work for the style that we're pursuing and stuff like that. But I mean, go back to what I said. I would never close an open door. So always approach it with an open mindset, mate, because you never know.
Yeah, man. It's like I'm never ever gonna be like no straight up. You know.
Yeah.
I've actually. I think I actually did chat to him on Instagram.
Nice.
A little bit after the release with you guys. And he was just saying he really liked it, and it was really cool to hear that from him.
Yeah, well, he actually bought a record. He actually bought one of the records, which is cool.
Yeah. I think I saw him giving that a spin on Instagram. But it's mate, what I said happens in the reverse as well. You know, I've sent some of my best tunes that I was so stoked with to some of my favorite labels or gold labels that I want to get on, and I'm like, look, this is really fucking good music, but it's just not quite right. And they're like, we want to hear more, you know, and that happens. That's going to continue to happen for the rest of my artist career, you know, and that's just. But you know, you just got to, like I said, take it with a grain of salt, and it's not like it's not an insult, you know. It's like you're trying to get on that label because they have good taste.
It's credible, exactly.
Yeah, and if they didn't have that good taste and that being picky, then they wouldn't be the best, that label that you love, you know.
That is absolutely true, mate. That's one thing that having a label, I've realised that just because an artist who's a big name sends over some music, if it's not stick to what you believe in, and if it's not right, don't release it, because
100%.
Not that I know any labels that do, but it's very easy just to sway towards, oh my God, this person sent us this music, this artist sent us this music, we need to put it out. But if it's not true to your sound, I feel like it's definitely reciprocated on the other end. So people that are buying the music or follow your brand, they know, not to brand it as selling out, but they can almost hear that you've just released that person because of who they are, rather than
exactly.
You're following your music and brand.
100%, mate. I've often looked at a label and thought, fuck, good on them, they've got this artist on there. But then I listen to the track and I'm like,
where's the connection?
Yeah, what are they releasing that for? It's completely different to, I guess that's the decision you make. You want to get that name on your label and get that exposure, or do you want to stay, I don't like to use the phrase "stay true to your sound."
Yeah.
Because sound's always evolving.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, more power to you if you want to be a label that doesn't stick to one style or genre. And I think I really,
it works both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly, man. I really like those labels that stray, and even my own label. Like, we don't really have a style, you know what I mean? Like, and you look through the years at all our different releases and what we're doing now, like you couldn't really pinpoint. And I think that makes it hard for people sending us demos too, because they listen to earlier releases and they're like, oh, this suits the label for sure. And then I go and say, sorry, mate, it's not for us. But I guess the main point I'm trying to say is like, like more power to them if that's the kind of label they want to be. But I guess at the end of the day, if you're just releasing for a name and not the actual music itself, it's kind of loses a bit of soul. Yeah. Yeah,
I definitely agree with that there. Well, that's a nice point to finish on. So we've actually finished this part of the podcast. So going through the informative questions, but I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently, and a nice thing to do at the end is just have like a lightning round. So random questions where it kind of delves into the person. So I've got a few here. This is the first time I've done it. So excuse. There's what is the four random ones. Then there's some hypothetical ones, which I think are quite funny. And there's three deeper ones. So to start out, what's your go-to alternative listening preference? I think we did cover on this before with Bob Moses and that Rufus. But what would you say?
But I would say even more different to that would be jazz. I love jazz and blues, mate. Yeah, any chance I get, chuck a jazz and blues on while I'm working or walking, whatever. Yeah,
that's nice. If you could learn to play one instrument, what would it be?
Piano. And I'm looking into it.
Do you know what? For the first lockdown, I gave it a go, mate. I found an old keyboard in my garage, mate, and I think I'll try to learn one tune. I was like, this is going to take so long.
Yeah, all good things do, But I'm looking into it. So you might see me on the keys in the future.
That's it, mate. That's it. Yeah. So what's your favourite club memory?
Well, I would say not one particular memory, but just the whole. It was probably a 2-year period, what I was explaining before, where all my current good mates, we came together from all different areas, every weekend, and sort of formed such a strong bond, and that's how Conspiracy was formed. For me, that period in my life was just unforgettable, like some of the best times of my life. I know this is supposed to be a lightning round, so
no, cover as much as you want, mate. Go on.
It was, just the significance of that was there was guys from 2 hours north, 2 hours south, 1 hour
all
west,
meeting.
Just all, and it's just for us to come together like that for every weekend for such a long period of time, and then hit it off so perfectly, and then forge like lifelong friendships. I guess you ask anyone who's into clubbing, raving, the music scene, everyone's going to have similar stories,
Yeah.
So for me, that period in my life is, for sure.
Yeah. That's very much what music's all about, isn't it? All congregating to one place to all enjoy the same moment.
That's it. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here.
Yes, mate. So what's your hidden talent?
Oh, fuck. Well, I like this is going to be. I'm going to manifest something here.
Okay.
My
is it playing
talent,
the piano?
Maybe. Yeah, that's a good one. But it's going to be speaking Spanish. At the end of this year. So.
Okay.
Yeah, let's ask that question again.
Yeah. Okay.
Do another interview.
We'll do another podcast end of the year, mate. I might not understand what you're saying, but you fire away.
Yeah, I'm doing my best right now.
Yeah, mate. Crack on. Okay, so hypothetical questions. You're walking in a forest and you find a suitcase. Inside the suitcase is £1 million and a piece of paper stained in blood with the word "don't" on it. Would you take it or would you leave it?
Fuck, I've thought about this many times in movies when you say,
would I do that?
yeah, I think I would take a little bit of the money.
Would you take $5,000 to get the dog over?
Yeah, for sure. I'd leave I think I'd leave the suitcase there and take a little bit of money, so you can't really notice I've taken the money, you know.
Yeah.
But then again, you know, in those sorts of situations, someone's watching you, and if you take the money, you're gone.
You're paranoid for life. I asked a couple of mates this, and he said, "I'll take the money and I'll pay for a bodyguard."
Yeah,
like,
true. Move overseas. Yeah.
So then, if you could time travel to one moment in the past, what would it be?
Oh, I've actually thought about this one many times too. Fuck. I'd love to see the dinosaurs.
Oh, yes.
Sure.
I did not think about
that. Going that far back. And then maybe just like, if more recently, just the Studio 54 era, you know? Like, do you know Studio 54?
No.
Mate, just this club in New York. I think it was about the 70s, 80s, the disco, you know, that New York house and disco era. Like, just, I think some of the parties there were just crazy, you know. Look up Studio 54 when we get off here, mate, and it's just like, it was just like an institution. I think they ended up getting brought down for illegal activities.
That was kind of the origins, was it?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think so. You know, like just a breeding ground of, you know, talent and personalities and stuff like that. Just
one of the places, like you said, that north, south, east, west all come together in places
exactly.
like that.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, I remember Andy Warhol was a frequent there. You know, all those big artists and musicians and actors and anyone who was anyone. And not the fact that it was a celebrity hotspot, but just the actual culture of it. Like the fact that a nightclub can create a culture, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a really good answer, that, mate.
Yeah.
So the next one, if you could sell your soul to the devil, what would you sell it for?
I'll get my dog over here.
I knew you were going to say that. That's an easy one. That is an easy one.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you had to get £10,000 tomorrow, but no one can loan you it, what would you do to get it? This is very relevant again.
Yeah.
To get the dog over.
Man, it would have to be something dodgy for sure, because I definitely not busking on the street for £10,000. I reckon I'd steal something.
Yeah, steal something worth 10 grand, would you?
Steal something worth. Oh yeah, maybe find like a broker and say, if I steal this for you, give me 10 grand cash.
I don't want to
think on your feet.
I'm just going to give a disclaimer. Yeah, I'm not saying for you to steal anything. Please do not associate it. I don't want to get rung up by Barcelona police because you want to get your dog back because you nicked a Ferrari. So then the last three are just about your kind of your look on life and stuff like that. So what's the one thing that you would teach someone?
I do this thing. If I ever find a quote or just anything that really like I guess speaks to me, I always try to write it down in my notes. And the most recent one that I wrote down was, you can't understand a process by stopping it. You have to flow with it and I guess learn as you go to understand a process, whether any process. So my thing would just be, no matter what you intend to do in life or what you want to do or where you're at, you know, just try and go with the flow and try to keep a positive outlook, I guess, you know, because I guess it sounds a bit cliche, but obviously there's always going to be tough moments and high moments. Yeah, fuck, like I've had many low moments, you know, and everyone has, you know, so, but I think the strongest people and most successful people come through those moments and use it to better themselves.
Yeah,
you know?
I firmly believe that sometimes you have to hit the bottom to reach the top.
Oh, 100%, man, 100%. You know, there's times, you know, where you just thing after thing is going wrong and
when's it going to get better? Yeah.
Yeah, you think,
especially at the minute. It's very relevant at the minute.
100%. I mean, specifically speaking about producers, I guess, or artists, I've seen a lot of interviews or where they're struggling to find inspiration and they've kind of just withdrawn into themselves because of the current like situation. But I don't know whether it's just because of my outlook on life or I'm just, I guess, lucky to have a different mindset. But I've had such a good, like, productive year with music and just life in general that I feel a bit like guilty, like, I don't feel guilty, but, you know, saying that, it's been a good year for me. I don't want to, you know, sort of insult other people who have really had it tough, you know what I mean? But for me, in terms of inspiration, like, musically speaking, there's inspiration everywhere. There's a million sources of inspiration.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that delves from your creativeness inside, doesn't it? Because I think some people can rely on external factors to boast their creativity, but you very much seem like one of those people that it's always internal, and you can draw inspiration from anything rather than going out to find inspiration. Exactly,
yeah. Like, in inspiration, you can draw from elsewhere, but motivation, as I said before, is not something that you should be drawing from elsewhere, because it sort of, the drive comes from
the drive comes from within, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think for me, that's a massive part of my life, not just in music, being a gym trainer. Like, you know, one of the main places that you have to try and motivate people or try and educate them on consistency and stuff is in the gym, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so even though such two totally different lives, you know, like lifestyles, a gym, like a personal trainer or a gym instructor, and then a DJ, like, you know, they kind of fight against each other.
Yeah. That's a really good ethos, to be fair, mate. I've never thought of it like that. The gym and making music, the process of them both is very similar. You have to turn up every day. You have to understand what you're doing, what it's doing, and how it's improving you. And you know, that's I've really never thought of it like that, but that's a good way of putting it, mate. I like that.
Yeah, well, I've had a lot of time in both industries, you know, thinking about that, and I guess a good thing about working with my older brother as my boss, he's big on, like, self-improvement and development. So we used to have meetings regularly, and he would ask me, like, all these sorts of different questions that would actually make me think, fuck, you know, why am I so driven to make music every day, or what is it that I love? And it's the same for training, you know, like in the gym, whether you run, whether you lift weights, whether you swim or whatever, like, as you said, man, you got to turn up every day, like, even though you don't want to. And, you know, fuck, man, there's times where you don't feel like writing music, you don't feel like training, but if you just sit down or you get to the gym and you just begin, it may turn out to be a really, really productive session. It may not, but you
still turned up.
It's a win, because you didn't, like, let yourself.
You didn't stay at home. You turned up and you did the work.
That's it, man. That's it.
Yeah, I really like that, mate. So what would you say is your one essential habit to success?
Well, I guess we touched on a fair few of my little things, but I would say staying healthy, man. Staying healthy, like, physically, mentally, they go hand in hand. Yeah. But I don't even think I really touched on that, I guess, so yet. But the times when I look back and think that I've written the most music and my best music, I was just in a really good space. I was happy, you know, I was, whatever it was for me, it may be different for everyone else, you know, but exercising regularly, going down, swimming in the beach, just having that refresher and that reset, and then I'll be writing music, and I was just, like, happy, you know, like, it was just, and right now the same thing, like, that's what I mean, like, there's so much shit going on in the world, but I'm just still, like, I'm just happy, you know, like, I'm here, like, you know, working on music and drawing and fucking being creative, and, like, you know, and I'm, you know, my dog's at home. That's the only thing that's really getting me down. But I know that there's nothing I can do about that right now. So I'm not letting it really affect me. And I guess rounding it back in, if you're not happy internally, I guess, or content, or at least understanding of why you're unhappy. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're not going to be happy all the time, but if you at least understand why you are currently feeling a little bit down or a little bit off, and you can then fix it.
Yeah.
Then that's the most important thing, I think, for success in whatever field you're doing. You know what I mean? Just understanding yourself. Yeah, for sure.
That's really nice, mate. Like you said, if you don't understand why you're unhappy, then you can't then understand the process of what's going to make you happy. Whereas if you understand internally what's affecting your happiness, whether it's you're not pursuing something that you want to do, you're not around the right people, or just the weight of the world at the minute is just getting on top of you. If you can identify that, then you can understand what you can change to improve your quality of life. So that's a really nice point, mate.
Exactly, man.
Shouts for that. So the last question: what's your one rule of life?
Rule of life. I guess that kind of ties back into. I'll try and put it into a rule form.
Okay.
All right. I guess my rule of life: stay healthy, keep in contact with friends, and just pursue what you love doing. That's it.
That's nice, mate. Well, that's
3 rules in one.
First rule is there is no rules.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, that's a really nice note to finish on, mate. So it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. And stay tuned for it coming out. So I've got a few things I need to sort first before it comes out, but I'll be putting it out as soon as possible.
Yeah, legend, man. Thank you very much.
All the best, mate.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, mate. So all the best in Barcelona. I'll give a shout out about your dog. See if we can raise that fund, and we'll keep in touch, mate.
Legend, mate. And I hope to see you over your way this year.
Yes, mate.
At some point, if I could try to get up there.
Yes, mate. Hopefully 2021 we'll catch up with each other in person.
Legend, man.
Legend, mate. All the best. See you later.
See you, bro.